I didn't remember with precision when there was started at all, but probably was that closing Wednesday accountant when Megan had her first strong outbreak. Leah was in the office in the middle of a tense meeting when received the call from her father. Megan was wearing 3 hours locked in her bathroom, talking to myself and crying without stopping. They tried to take her to the hospital, but since she didn't have valid health insurance, they rejected her. Leah didn't hesitate. She left. Of the work, was straight to his parents' house, and that same evening transferred more than the half of their savings to cover a private clinic. Nobody asked, but everyone accepted without question. She thought it would be a one-off, but after that day, it became custom. When something got out of control, her mother's medication that was no longer covered, the Lapland to an expired card from his father. The Megan's rent is late because the boyfriend disappeared. It was always Leah's number. That appeared in the screen, and she responded. At first it felt helpful, as if he were really acting with maturity. I often heard that it was the sensible daughter, the one who had feet in the land, the one that always responded, but with time, understood that those praises came accompanied by an implicit expectation, that it should be her who would hold everything, even if for that had to postpone his life, his desires, his tranquility. For 5 years, Leah took over the supporting role invisible, without signing any paper, without never receiving a real thank you, became in health insurance the mattress financial and emotional support of the entire family, created the emergency fund to your name, which no one else fed, but of the which everyone extracted without asking. It covered everything from psychiatric consultations to repairs from his father's car. Each transfer towards silently, sometimes from the bathroom of the work, others from their bed in middle of the night, after reading messages filled with urgency and guilt. No one offered give him nothing back. Nobody asked, as was she. Leah didn't have children, nor couple, nor no one who depended on her beyond that family that had accustomed to seeing it as a resource. From the outside, it seemed that had everything under control, a good job in finances, an apartment decorated with pleasure, and always sensible answers to the dramas of the others. But inside, he was starting to empty out. He felt like he was putting out fires all his life. Strangers, while his own life remained on pause. There was stopped making plans, stopped saving for himself, same. To allow yourself to think about simple things like a trip or a new course. Everything was spinning about not letting anything collapse. The breaking point was not a tragedy or a great discussion. It was a text message. Megan asked Leah to cover a spiritual yoga retreat in Costa Rica with a cost $3,200. Leah, exhausted and already feeling used, she responded calmly that I could not help with that. There were no immediate shouts or reproaches. Only a few hours later, his parents sent a message in the family group saying that maybe it better would be for Leah to walk away for a time. As if she out the problem. The most disconcerting thing was the thumbs-up emoji he left his Aunt Carol at the end of the message. Not a single word in his defense. Leah read that message 3 times before reacting. She felt a mixture of disbelief and relief. She had given 5 years of her life, not out of obligation, but out of love, out of that deep sense of responsibility that there was accompanied since she was little. And when she said no for the first time, that they discarded it as if it were dispensable. He didn't argue. He didn't explain. He simply he access to the family fund. blocked the automatic transfers, and disabled the alerts that kept them tied up emergencies. Foreign. Nobody noticed, immediately realized. But within hours, everything began to fall apart. To the tomorrow next. His cell phone showed 89 missed calls. First his mother, then her father, then Megan, and later even her cousin, who never spoke with she. There was dramatic voicemails, pleas disguised as urgency, and more directly accusing her of abandoning the family. Leah listened one by one, in silence, without cry, without responding. Every word confirmed what she already sensed. Not her. Saw him not as a person, but as a source, a solving machine. And when that machine would stop working, the whole system would go down in panic. That same one night, that they called a family meeting over Zoom. They didn't ask if I was available. They sent him the link as if it were his duty. Attend. Leah connected, with he calm but firm face, and for 40 minutes he let everyone talk. Reproaches, manipulations, memories distorted of everything they did for her in his childhood. When finally you gave the word, shared screen and showed a document, a detailed record with dates, amounts, and recipients of every cent he had contributed in the last 5 years. The final figure left the video call in silence. Nobody it denied, but neither it. They thanked her. Instead, they started calling her cold, calculating and controlling. Leah heard all that with a mixture of tiredness and lucidity. It no longer hurt same way. It was as if finally could see, with clarity, the type of dynamics in the one who had been trapped for so long. It didn't matter how much gave, how much was sacrificed, or how organized it was your delivery. Always that would make you feel guilty by no do more. Finished the call, closed the laptop, was prepared a tea, and sat down in silence. There were no screams or tears, just a strange but firm certainty. It was over. They passed some days no contact. The silence was new, uncomfortable, but also liberating, until a notification arrived from the bank that stirred his stomach. Someone had tried to open an $80,000 loan using your name, her social security number, and documents that, upon review, turned out to be falsified versions of papers she had saved in a shared folder with his father years ago, when amount he family background. The intention was obvious. They wanted keep his name linked to the finances of the family, even after their breakup. It was like a final stab, more calculated than emotional, and instead of collapsing, Leah acted. In less than 24 hours, Leah gathered all the emails, documents, and necessary screenshots. He called his bank, filed a formal complaint, and requested he blockade immediate of any motion with his personal information. He also notified the local police and contacted directly to the IRS. Don't did with anger, nor with desire for revenge. He acted like someone who, at last, chooses himself. Same. For the first time, she applied for her own life, the same. Rigor with the one who had protected others for years. This time, it wasn't for them. It was for her. The consequences were immediate. Your family, seeing themselves exposed, changed tactics. From attack, they went to silence, and from silence to messages, passive-aggressive. Leah didn't respond. She concentrated. In packing up his apartment, he accepted a job offer he had been putting off months ago and moved to another city. The new office was brighter, the team more professional, and the salary 27% higher. But the most important thing was something else. No one knew. Nobody I expected more from her than what she decided to offer. For the first time, She felt that the weight of family expectations was not on her. Followed like a shadow, the first one's days in the new city were strangers. Leah was still surprised looking at her bank account without feeling anxiety. There was no scheduled transfers, nor calls nocturnal with crisis to resolve. I could choose that due with his time, with his money, with his silence. He discovered that liked walk without course, after of the work, which toward it was fine to eat alone without explaining her decisions to anyone, and that it was okay if she didn't respond the family messages. Little by little, that emptiness that at first gave fear began to fill with a calm that had never been there before acquaintance. One afternoon, while I read in a coffee, received the unexpected message. It was from his Uncle Ray, his mother's brother, with who the family had cut ties years ago for reasons that always remained vague. The text read, "I just wanted to tell you that I understand what you did. And what did you do?" Okay. Leah didn't answer immediately, but read those words several times. Days later, he received other message, this time from one of the Megan's ex-boyfriends, thanking her for being the only one who ever tried really help your sister. It wasn't redemption, it wasn't comfort, but it was the first time someone recognized his history without ask for nothing in return. Leah wasn't looking for recognition, but she could not deny the shock of finally feeling seen. There was past years feeling like a functional ghost inside his own family, present, efficient, but invisible in the emotional. When stopped providing, too ceased to exist for them. And now, from a distance, those small gestures, a message, an honest phrase, a sign of respect, they were starting to build something new. Not a support network, but a sense of regained dignity. He no longer needed to justify every step. He had begun to walk, without permission. They passed a few weeks until it arrived his next attempt at contact. An email, this time titled Last Chance. In he, her father, spoke of an urgent family crisis and suggested that Leah should, for the good of all, reconsider opening the background. He said that even had a moral responsibility, that family was never perfect, but always was united. Leah read his message in silence, without anger, without surprise. He thought for a few minutes and answered with a single sentence. "Yes, I put something together. It's called my future." He closed her mail, blocked the direction, and, for the first time in years, he slept soundly. Following months were the most stable Leah had ever lived in years. He allowed himself to rest without guilt, decorating his new apartment without thinking about the practicality of each expense, and even began to come out with someone, something he had avoided for years, feeling like his life had no space for your own links. For the first time, your energy was not dispersed in support others. It was present in in what you toward well. He started therapy. He resumed pottery classes on Saturdays and met again with friendships that they were cast aside for lack of time. Life wasn't perfect, but it was finally his. Sometimes still traces of the appeared past. An email without matter, a call from an unknown number, an old photo on social media, but he no longer generated vertigo. Leah had learned to put boundaries, not as defensive barriers, but as acts of self-love. I knew that many people would not change, and that their version of the facts would continue being misrepresented by those who benefited of silence. But it was no longer his responsibility to correct everything. He stopped trying to convince. He stopped expecting emotional justice. From those who didn't know, give it. He chose, with full awareness, to let go. With he time, too understood something that cost a lot. Except that not everything that breaks has to be fixed, that there are relationships that last only because one party refuses to let go. And that letting go. Falling isn't always abandonment. Sometimes it's survival. Leah stopped reviewing family groups, looking back for signs. She didn't need to rebuild the history to validate itself. What he lived through, it was real. What it gave was valuable. And what decided it was fair. I no longer needed anyone else to confirm it. That validation no longer came from outside. One day, walking along his new neighborhood, crossed with a woman major who sold plants in the sidewalk. He was kind, one of those people who make you feel that the world is still, has safe corners. Leah stopped, bought a little cactus and chatted for a few minutes. As they said goodbye, "The women you?" He said, "It doesn't seem like it a lot. But if you take good care of it, it will last a lifetime." Leah smiled, not because of the plant, but because of what that phrase triggered. For the first time, she thought in his own life as something to be cared for, not as a useful instrument for others, but as something that deserved his attention, your tenderness, your time. And that, he thought, was also a way to start over. Leah placed the small cactus on her kitchen windowsill, right next to the kettle she used every morning. It was just a plant, but it became almost a daily reminder that she could grow something just for the fun of it. No one expected her to solve someone's crisis anymore. No one watched her for a sensible response anymore. Little by little, she realized there was a whole world of small decisions she'd never allowed herself to make. Silly things, painting the wall a shade she liked, wearing an outfit that wasn't practical, canceling plans without giving an excuse. Freedom, for her, took on a new meaning. Then, on a rainy Friday afternoon, she received one last message. This time, it was from Megan, a short, direct text saying she knew everything Leah had done to her and was sorry. She didn't expect forgiveness, but wanted her to know that she now understood. Leah read the text calmly. She didn't cry, nor did she respond immediately, but she didn't delete it either. She saved the message and remained silent for a while, staring at the cactus in the window. Life went on. There were still pains, scars, difficult memories, but for the first time, none of them defined her anymore. He had no further contact with the family after that, not even when arrived the news that his father had had health complications, nor when his mother tried to send her a letter by mail that she returned unopened. It wasn't cruelty, it was borderline. Leah had understood with he time that forgiving did not mean returning, that recognizing he damage did not force. The reconstruction of bridges, if those bridges always were leading to the same place of where he chose live in peace, even if that meant being misunderstood for the rest of her life. She no longer, I had two explanations to no one. Today, years then, continue without children, without couple stable, but with a sense of autonomy that never he thought he would get to experiment. His life no longer revolves around putting out fires. Strangers. He has his routine, his Sunday market, his playlist for cleaning the house and its cactus, which follows growing up. Sometimes, when someone asks him about his family, he just says they are distant and lets the silence complete the sentence. He doesn't regret it. He doesn't miss it. And if he ever receives again a request for help, now has his clear answer. Yes, I put something together. It's called My Future,